like to welcome everybody. I hope you have a wonderful Friday and you are ready to spend some time with us and get inspired. My name is Petra Valashigluterova. I am learning and development consultant, training designer, and a trainer. And most of all, I will be hosting you today. I feel very privileged hosting this session because it's my a very loved topic, game-based and story-based training, not only to deliver, but also to create. And together with my guests and colleagues, we'll bring you different perspectives on how game-based training can make development rememberable and very exciting to attend. So today we'll have a different perspective, as I mentioned. I will host the opening, and then we'll have a keynote speech from my boss and innovator who is very huge expert in this topic, especially because it's his, I think it's his love thing to do. He's very visionary and he's very innovative. So from his perspective to hear how we actually do the game-based and story-based training. So we'll give you some sneak peek to our kitchen. And then we switch to a different perspective to our clients or people who either buy or attend our trainings. And to dive deeper, you will have a chance to attend breakout room, which we cover actual topics of the product. So we have 4 breakout rooms. I will give you more details about each breakout room later in our session. Just some technical information. We'll have 1 hour all together, and then we'll finish with 30 minutes in breakout room. So after that, feel free, after the breakout room, feel free to give us a goodbye and reach us through different social media platforms. A small tip so you can immerse in this experience. Please select speaker view mode, so you will hear me speaking and my presentation, and then later on my colleagues. Then you will have a nice visual of what is going to happen today. And before I jump to the topic itself, I would like to get your attention to 2 events which will be holding online through our companies in Ukraine. So it's how to deal with a shortage of staff for management position. It's on 8th of December. And then in Central Asia, the topic is role of leader in team development on 3rd of December. If you want to know more about these events, I think the easiest way is to click on the QR codes and you can reach us there. But I think most of the information that you will need, you will receive also after this webinar in your email. So whenever you need, you will have there. Small but big thing that we do also in DEVELOR is the L&D Kaleidoscope. This is the 3rd year that we do the survey. It's 20 plus companies. It has more than 1,700 replies. Why it is important for you? We collect information about the development needs, present and future. And we will be very honored if you fill out also your expertise, your experiences. And as a bonus, you will get absolutely detailed survey from years before and from this year as well. So this is also something that you can find on our website. So I think officialities are behind us, and I would like to invite you to my first question, which is kind of out of box, but trust me with the process. My question is, what was your favorite toy growing up as a child? And, I was really thinking to make sure I include everything, but there would be very many. So I just chose these 6, some of older ages, some new ages. So I would be very interested, what was your childhood like? Which was your favorite one? Just to see. Yeah, I think most of us played with Lego, some with Barbies. Amazing. Oh, some preferred books, even better. So we have a lot of, okay, Barbies and Legos. None of you had given Furby, so I guess that was out of, oh no, we have Nancy, thank you. Okay, Barbie. Joel has Lego, okay. Tade, airplanes, amazing. So the next time I need to add more. Anastasia had all 6, amazing. So when we were kids, we loved to play with toys because they stimulated our imagination. There were no boundaries how we play, with what we play, who we included. And this is something that is still with us, even as an adult. But I think we lack the playground. We lack the physical toys. So what we are left with are stories and games. Let's look a little bit in the back in the history. I would like to invite you to think of a person who lived in the year of 1000. His main goal was to make sure he is living, to make sure that he's safe. His impressions, sensory impression per day, were 100 to 500. So imagine just, raining was an impression, sheep running was an impression, so very little. And his main goal was to be safe and to be fed. Let's jump 500 years more. This person was more stimulated because people got interconnected more. They started to live in the cities. There was some culture growing up and so on, but still 500, sensory impression per day. And now let's jump a little bit more than 500 years, but to this year. And for me, this number was very shocking. But on the other hand, it gave me an answer why people are so tired. So the impression per day that we have today, sensory impression, is 10,000 to 30,000 sensory impression per day. And now, why am I talking about this, guys, and why it is important in today's topic? We live in an age we call data obesity. And now think when we have this kind of narrative and we have participants coming to a training where we want to inspire them, we want to teach them something, we want some change, some, growing a competence. But this person is already overstimulated and tired. And now we want to give him more information. And so it would be way easier for us to deliver training for a person living in in the year 1000, but that's not the scenario. So what we need to take into account is this setting that we have very overstimulated people, and what we can do is to help them, to synthesize, to digest the information way easier, so it has some impact. And even though that they have a very different lifestyle, they still have something in common, and something in common with the child that I wanted to wake up in you today through toys. And the common thing is games and stories. I think even in the age, if it would be year 3000, I think this is still something that holds on. So why we love games and stories. And I think we all have the answers within ourselves. But I would like to highlight or show you what is actually why we like games. So simply, they provide structure to play, because even though that we're adults, we like to have boundaries. We're not like kids that they want to be really free. On the other hand, we like to know the rules, what are the, what's the goal of the game. So really the games provide structure to play. what's even more important, they bring people together by default. We don't have to, try too much, because we love to have this aspect of being together. Even in the PC games, they started to be very, individual, but the game designers learned that it's way attractive to have cooperative games. The third one, they offered mental stimulation, which we of course want to experience on the training, but in a setting that it's safe and is, attractive. And that brings me to the fourth point, that we really do like role plays as a trainers, because they're very effective. But in a setting of game, it's way easier, because people feel safe. They like different roles, and they like to play characters. So this brings us a new opportunity to really make sure that they enjoy the role plays and they're not afraid of role plays. When it comes to stories, I think we all can agree that they make life simpler and more memorable. So even in a complex narrative, the story brings lightness and helps us to make sense of the world. Especially with difficult topics, this in DEVELOR really help us to kind of shape what we want to provide to our participants. It definitely triggers emotion, and when we have emotion, there is a way more retention of information, build connection, mentioned also in the games, and last but not least, they teach and preserve cultures. So this is how we actually had some even historical moments through myths, through some mythical stories and so on, which brings a sense of community. So why we actually brought these two aspects to development of skills and what it brings to training experience. My favorite is escaping routine. Because once people walk in the room and they see map, they see little figures, they see globe, or they see a Mars, they're completely taken out of their reality, and they're there with us. Because on a traditional training, we need to put a lot of emphasis at the beginning to connect with the people, to make sure that they are there with us. And these physical elements on our training session really helps us to, speed up this process. And then, of course, engage emotionally and intellectually, connect with others, and then experience mastery of meaning. So at the end, they really feel fulfilled on all sensory levels. And I think they are, at the same time, they're not overstimulated. So I hope we will have a lot of fun also today. Now I would like to give word to my colleague, Martin. He will tell us more how do we do it in DEVELOR. So I think it's very interesting also for you to see how we call it in our kitchen, how we cook these trainings, because it's not always roses and wine, or how we call it. It had some downfalls. It's very, I think, intellectually challenging thing to bring high quality game-based and story-based training. So it makes sense. So participants feel it was relevant. So Martin, before I give a word to you, I have a little gossip on each of my guests today, in a sense of games and stories, because I was very interested in how, on a human level, how my host, how do like people games and stories. And I asked Martin, so in your personal life, do you play games, or how do you work with stories? And he told me like, so I am a game master at work. I love to play games at work with my participant, where I am the game master. But at home, I am not the game master. My game master is my daughter. So there is her place where she decides what we play and how we play it. So this is Martin's, I think, connection to games. and he himself said that he prefers stories than games. But let's hear more from Martin today on the topic of how we do it in DEVELOR.
I'll start with the question. The question might be relevant to all of us, but it's also relevant to companies. So it's like, what are you remembered for? And if DEVELOR is supposed to be remembered for something, then I think it's supposed to be legendary training with impact. And what is legendary training? How do we define that? Imagine you are walking through a shopping mall and you meet a general director of your client who you did not work with for a long time. And he's looking at you and he knows that he knows you, but he cannot remember where from. And after like 5 seconds of thinking, he says, Amundsen. And this is where even after five years of the training, he connects your face with the experience that we have provided to him or her. Now, how legendary training with impact is delivered? So it's obviously the trainer role is very important there, but also the product development is critical. And I would like to share a story, some stories, how those legendary trainings based on story and game can be actually developed. How it started? It all started around 2012 when I was talking to my friend who was a board member in a FMCG company. And we were tendering their development program for the top management. And the challenge was that the top board members of the big FMCG companies, they are very skilled. They participate everything. And it's not easy to engage them on a training unless it's very practical, it's case-based, or it is workshop related to strategy. But with normal training, the success is very difficult. We lost the tender, and then he sent me who won for the soft skill development, and he sent me pre-reading of story and game-based training, which was delivered to them by a UK company. It was built on Henry V, which is a Shakespeare story, and they were connecting Henry V's journey to the leadership skills. And I started to think, this is very interesting because it was inspirational for the top management, while normal training is difficult to engage. And this is where we started to build our, I would call it, giant story and game-based portfolio, where the 3 most iconic products are probably Amundsen, Mars, and Atlantis. It all started with Atlantis. And here are some flip charts from 2012, where it was very difficult for us to set the design strategy. So we were thinking, what should be the competencies? What shall be the logic of the game? What should be the story and how to connect it? And it took us a long time to do that. We were thinking about variety of people who we can build it around. And we were, going 2 steps and making 1 step back throughout the design where we were learning from our mistakes. But what we find out throughout the development were the basic principles, which I can call success criteria, how to do that. And that helped us to do it better the next time. First of all, we have to start with the competencies and the story. And if we are starting with the gamification, then it's a problem. I would say the step number 1 is start with why. Very strong clarity on relevant competencies. Some of us who are here participated our second development when we started, for example, with exercise preparation. So we were experiencing exercises. And they were attractive because that was fun, but then we did not know what is the message of the exercises, so it was a wrong start. So for sure, start with the competencies. And when you are thinking about the story, the second step, make sure that the competencies you want to develop are part of or they are demonstrated in the selected story. When you will be thinking about the story, it's also important that the story is attractive, it's documented. So if there are movies and it's known, it helps you because then you need to spend less time in setting the scene. The fourth point relates to the problems which can happen on a way. For example, when we were doing Amundsen, I was several years after oncology treatment. And through my oncology or my cancer treatment, Lance Armstrong was my hero because Lance Armstrong was, he was cancer survivor, and he was giving him a lot of motivation and energy to overcome that. So one of the ideas which we are thinking is that what if we build the story of leadership based on the Lance Armstrong, supported by the team in the cycling. But what turned against to us was that after approximately 2 years, his doping facts came out. And if he would build the story based on Lance Armstrong, the product would be ruined because his credibility was absolutely lost. So there is a risk in selecting the hero, which later would be unheroed. What is other good tip is that when you will be doing story-based development, it is always very high investment. And we had many failures. An example of a failure when we were thinking that the innovation product can be done as a story-based learning. And we spent approximately 1 year of work on innovation-based product. And then it was all sent to dustbin. And the reason was that the practical setup was much better than the story-based setup. And for example, to give you an example where it's threat, it can be, for example, in case of strategic sales. So we have a training which is developing strategic sales in a story-based setup. It is good, but the issue is that the real life scenario is more practical than the story-based scenario. Same is with the design thinking. So we have training, or we try to do a training, which is story-based, built on innovation and design thinking. The issue is that the design thinking practical setup is more practical than the story-based practical setup. And the last thing, in terms of story and competency development, is that the training effort, which the participants go through, shall not be higher than the impact of the training. It took us a year to learn those success criteria, and it's probably a good strategy how to cook. The second part of the success criteria relates to the gamification. And the recommendation number 1 is that the impact of the gamification should support the motivation and it should drive the engagement. It should not be overcomplicated on one side, but on the other side, it should be somehow sophisticated. It should not be too much childish. If we are able to find a way how to put the aha moment of the gamification to support the competency, then it's good. Attractive setup and design helps. And overall, the gamification, I think, should not be more than 5 or 7% of the time. Once we have it, then we have to blend it together. And I think the right mixture of theory, video, case study, situational exercises, and gamification is very important. And post-work is always needed because we need to support the application and we need to anchor the knowledge. And the pre-work is very needed because we need to form the attitude. So let's look how we were doing in the first case, which we will be sharing, which is Amundsen. Amundsen was quite easy because we are going through the story of Amundsen and Scott, practicing the core leadership skills. And, for example, how we delegate, how we motivate, how we provide feedback, how we set strategy, how we resolve conflict. And the story of Amundsen and Scott helps us to bring the competencies into life, because there were many motivations where Amundsen and Scott was setting the strategy, announcing the change, delegating tasks, providing feedback. So those type of competencies are easy to put into story, and they are also giving big attractivity to the training development. In terms of the gamification, we took the most simple, which is linear type of movement. But still, even though it's linear type of movement, so we are going from the landing to the South Pole and back, people are planning resources, they are planning, they are anticipating unforeseen situations like weather, and they are planning food and the way of movement. What is the beauty of that development is that people learn the core leadership skills in an environment which is inspirational. And if the mindset is not ideal, then it gets shifted. So for example, let's go into the example of the FMCG top management. They would never participate a training where they would, delegate the task to their colleague, because they would say this is trivial. But on the other side, if we tell them, you are not a general manager of FMCG company, but imagine you are Amundsen and you need to delegate a task to your colleague to get resources to win over the other team, they are much more willing to participate because it's psychological safe. They cannot fail as general manager. They will fail as a Scott. It's fun because people laugh at that. And they need to do it well because they need to win over the second team and get more resources in order to be more successful. In order to feel the atmosphere, let's look at a 90 seconds video from the training. Amundsen was easy because it was known competencies and linear gamification. In Mars, it was much more challenging because we want to go into the future competencies and we had to change the logic of the gamification. And we started to fail at the beginning. It took us 18 months of failure, how we were starting Mars. While Amundsen was done by the Bratislava team, Mars started to be developed by the teams in Prague, who thought they will be able to do that, but they were doing the same mistakes as the Bratislava team was doing during the Amundsen development. So we did not start with the competencies, we started with the exercises. It was interesting, but it made no sense. After that, after 18 months, Bratislava team took over and it started to shape. This is an example of the first, discussions about how we are doing the competencies and how we are setting the competencies to the story, and then how gamification actually ends. And what we are trying to achieve in this story and game-based training is to show people how they can organize as the best team in the world. And we get the inspiration, for example, from the sport team. And we get the inspiration from the army team and, for example, agile teams. And it's one element. And the second element is how we can lead those teams which are supposed to be best in the world. And the story which we selected is the future story, Conquering Mars. Why? Because that's exactly where the future leadership will demonstrate. And this is the moment where the ability of the team to be the best globally and to be led in the best way will be the enabler to be successful. In order to get the feeling of the story, let's look at a short video.
We had set out into the unknown. Explorers of a new world. I was part of the first mission.
Mission control. We're looking at a red planet.
A new hope for humanity.
For as long as we've looked up at the night sky, wonder, that is what we felt.
Creating a self-sustaining civilization on Mars would be the greatest adventure ever in human history. It would be so exciting to wake up in the morning and think that that's what's happening.
With every discovery,
right now, we're becoming a multiplanetary species.
with every hardship, I'm worried. I don't know about this.
You had these people taking immense risks.
We were taking a step forward for humankind. We spent all this time looking for something that'll bring us all together.
Earth's surface is the shoreline of a new ocean.
Hey, you ready for this?
Are you? Here we go.
We were able to achieve is the right blend of attractivity, because the story is appealing, psychological safety, because people don't fail as a team, as a leader in adaptive leadership in their company, but they fail and learn from the failure on artificial mission on Mars. And that builds a lot of good discussions and curiosity how things could be done better. What we also were able to do throughout the gamification part, opposite to Amazon, that the gamification is part of the situational exercise, and it's a part of the team decision-making routines. So even from the gamification part, which is like 5 to 6% of the time, we are getting a lot of aha moments, how teams behave and how ideal teams should be led. Mission Mars is appealing. The risk I see is that it's future story, and not everyone identifies with the type of future story. And we also had a major failure related to Mission Mars 2, because we said it's so successful that we have to continue. And we spent 1 year development Mission Mars 2, and it was a lot of money and a lot of work and effort which went to the dustbin. And it was related to the fact that we selected design scenario where it was more practical to do it on a real life case than on a story life based. So that was an important learning for me, because I was funding all the development, and important learnings for all the team that was working with that. Where Petra is smiling, she's one of the members. And the last, we moved to Atlantis. Atlantis is miracle for me. This is the most new product, and it was developed by mostly by Jana. And the miracle for me is that the competencies which we are developing are very, very new. And it was the first time when me and Martina Georgieva, as a typical product owner for this development, did not set up the direction even on the competencies nor on the gamification. And we handed over to Jana. Jana, how was Atlantis born and what we can learn from the design?
So hello everyone, I hope you're having a good Friday. So again, my name is Jana and I'm a learning designer from DEVELOR Slovakia. So how's the development? Just to simplify it really, I would put it into 4 basic steps. The one was following trends for inspiration. Then the second one would be a research phase. The third one, creation phase. And the fourth one, testing and adjusting. And just to tell you more about each of those. So following trends for inspiration, you truly need to follow like interesting people, interesting trends. And this is not just like maybe 2 or 3 months before the program starts, but maybe a couple of years, even before you know that the training is being developed. And this sets the tone for pre-selection of the relevant competencies. Once you are clear about that, and that reflects the why that Martin was talking about, then you can move on to the research phase, which I really love because everybody who knows me, that I have a preference for really digging deeper for the analysis and so on. So it's really watching documentaries, reading books, listening to podcasts, Googling. And the most important thing in this phase is knowing when to stop, okay? And you really need to stop at some stage and recognize it when, because well, as you are going deeper, you can really realize that there is so much you still don't know, but you still have to work with the things that you have put together. Then you have the creation phase. So actually, if I talk about Atlantis, I was trying to select the modern concepts or the modern competencies and linking them to the ancient wisdom. So I was really looking for the stories, approaches, old allegories by the old thinkers like Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, and creating exercises. And maybe what was different to creating of Amundsen and Mars was that for the first time I was actually using AI to get some inspiration for the exercises. So that was different. And the last phase was the testing and adjusting phase. So testing it really the sequences with the colleagues. And the biggest challenge was to test the program within our international network, because that is the most challenging audience. And I'm not really a trainer, so I can do it, but it's not my preference. So this was the hardest. So these were the 4 steps. And what I could say, the positives of doing it on my own was to have the creative freedom, the independence, and really doing it my way. But on the downside of this, that the positives, these very same positives, could become the negatives as well, because you can sort of develop a developmental blindness, and you just don't see the things anymore that others could see. So I was really glad when Peťa, who is our host today, jumped in later. And apart from creating a really highly impactful visual design, she helped me and was my what I would call a challenging buddy. So thank you, Petra, again for that. And maybe what is also interesting to say, it's not really a 9-to-5 job sitting at the computer, because as you know, they're saying that the best ideas come in the shower, and it's really like that. So you sort of have to live the story. You wake up with it, you walk with it. For instance, I was listening a lot to the Greek music or other thematic music to really get into it and feel it. And for instance, the title, The Labyrinth of Perspectives, that came to me as I was sitting in the garden of my brother next to the pool. So it wasn't really in front of the computer. So Yeah, that's maybe what I would like to say. Maybe one last thing, that I was really glad that Martin allowed me to have focus time, because in the long run, you really need your focus time. I don't think, at least from my own perspective, it cannot be done if you are multitasking or having some other projects.
Jana started after Mars 2. Mars 2 was a failure. Jana was not part of the failure. I was. And at the beginning, I trusted her a lot. On the other side, I was also sometimes a little bit afraid, because there were, for example, the situation, Jana, you might remember, with the Platon cave, which I said, like, whoa, what is this? So
Yes.
even through the testing, there were moments like, I absolutely don't get it, where we are moving. It is a miracle for me, Atlantis, because whenever we are doing, almost always the NPS, Net Promoter Score, is 100%. It's absolutely not easy to almost always get 100% NPS, and even at the best trainings we have, like Insight Discovery, it's absolutely not obvious that we are getting such a high score. And what is even more, like, inspirational and surprising for me is the huge need for those types of skills that we are developing through Atlantis, because we are moving from the good things to the future things, and the focus on system thinking, the focus on sense making, and how to bring that into better decision is, like, truly inspirational for me. Let's also discuss a little bit about the story-based, because one thing is competency, second thing is like how the story is linked to the scenario. Jana, what is this?
So this was a slide I created after our very first brainstorming with Martin. And we were thinking that probably, skipping from Mars, which was oriented towards the future, maybe we could look to the past and see if there are any parallels, like with the civilizations and what they have lived like ages ago and what we are living now. And this was like thinking, like, what would be the best civilization to work with. And we have finally decided on the ancient Greece, because there was so much inspiration, so many stories, and we felt like people could actually, at least in the Central Europe, could really relate with that, because they travel a lot to Greece, and we have the experience at the trainings that people really know the stories they have visited, and they can. It's much more relevant for them this way.
So the moral of our story, because we are here mostly L&D professionals or HR professionals, and probably each of us is thinking how to bring more engagement, psychological trust into the learning culture. So whenever you would be trying to bring the element of stories to your development, consider those success criteria which we learned hard way in terms of how to work with the competencies, how to work with the story. Consider the success criteria for the gamification, because it's absolutely not easy. And I don't like the name game-based training, because it's mostly story-based training supported by the game, and the ability to blend it together is very important.
Thank you so much, Martin and Jana. So you heard some stories and experiences, how it is from, let's say, the kitchen. And now let's hear from our ladies, who are my guests today. What are their experience with actually either, selling the training to internal clients or being a part of training itself. So I would like to welcome Zuzana Primusová, who is from the HR chair from the company Anikura. And I ask AI how I can introduce your company with one sentence. And it says, European Family of Animal Hospitals. So veterinary care, but I guess Anikura is part of a bigger group. And I also asked Zuzana what's her relationship to stories and the games. And she said that she enjoys the games the most with her two children, 8 and 12. So I think it's now they're on the level that they will be better in games than you, right? So it's not like, yeah. Okay, and then I would like to welcome Vanessa Markola. She comes from Slovenia, from company Collector. AI was not so creative in the describing your company, but it says that it's a manufacturing company providing components for technologies, construction, and automotive business. And Vanessa's personal connection to either games or stories, it's, I think, very common for many of us. And she said that she misses them in her life. She doesn't have time or opportunities to explore. So maybe through game-based and story-based training, you can, wake up your inner child and have a chance to get back. So, ladies, I would like to welcome you. And I still have Martin here in case he would like to add to some of the questions that I have ready. So my first question to both of you ladies, when you heard first about game-based training or story-based training, what did you think, how it would look like, and what was the reality? Vanessa, we can start with you.
Hello to everyone from Slovenia. Thank you, Petra. Thank you, DEVELOR, to invite me here. So when I first came across game-based learning, when I was selected as a young leader to join the strategic leadership development program in the Collector Group, the training model for developing key strategic competencies was called Mission to Mars. We have that product created by DEVELOR. And this was my first real experience with this type of learning. Before that, I imagined game-based learning as something fun, light, and interesting addition to traditional workshops, but not something that would lead to deeper learning. I expected to be more playful rather than realistic. But my actual experience was very different. The situation pushed us to make decisions under the pressure, communicate quickly, and work together in uncertain situations. I was surprised how naturally we behaved exactly as we do in real work situations. Our normal habits like communication styles and blind spots became immediately visible. In many ways, the game felt even more realistic than classical training.
Thank you so much. That's very interesting to hear from your perspective. I must add one gossip. We delivered Mars for one bank, and their expectation was that we will take them like physically to like a simulation of Mars. So they were expecting to be in a room where we're simulating Mars itself. So this training was a little bit, over expected. The expectation were way over. So then we needed to change about some information in invitation, so people were more focused on development, not visiting Mars. Zuzka, your situation is a bit different. You're more in a chair to bring the education to talents and leaders in your company. So what did you think first when you heard about the game-based and training and story-based training?
Yeah, thanks, Petra. First of all, good morning to everyone. You know what? I think similar to Vanessa, I experienced game-based trainings probably over 15 years ago when I became the manager first time, and it was part of the Mars University because Mars is part of a family-owned business called Mars. And honestly, I didn't know what to expect. And back then, it was an online gamification. And I was immediately amazed. It's like what I realized at the moment is it was not an obligation to learn anymore. It really turned into adventure. And really, it pulls you in the story, pulls you in immediately. And I really ended up thinking, I don't want this to end because I was so curious to see how this is going to evolve and how my decision is going to impact the future story. So this was on a video. It was a film actually happening in the background, and I was supposed to make decision. And based on my decisions, the film would evolve further. So I think that was my first experience, and I was really fascinated how you get pulled into it, and really it was not obligation anymore. It was a fantastic experience that you want to be part of.
And this was 15 years ago, and you still remember.
Over 15 years ago. Yeah, honestly. And this is like, if somebody asked me what was one of the most legendary trainings I've experienced, it would be, and the first one, that would be definitely that one. I completely remember I ended up in a jail because I made the wrong decision. People were actually saying, hang her. So it's again, it's just fantastic that you are sitting there in a safe, warm chair at your home place, and you have an opportunity to test it. But you don't want to experience anything like that in the real world.
Amazing. So see, this is just the validation that, emotions have longer retention of remembering, since you still remember 15 years ago. And I guess you experienced many trainings, in between. So amazing. Okay. So you kind of started already answering this question, but Vanessa, would be interesting. What do you think is the main difference when you compare game-based and story-based training and the traditional training?
Main point is that game-based training does not allow you to stay passive. In traditional workshops, you can sit quietly, listen, and observe. But in the game, you are part of the action. You have to make decisions. You make to solve the problems and talk with your team. During our Mission to Mars workshop, this became very clear. When we had to decide fast and work under time pressure, our communication styles immediately surfaced. All the learning happened through the experience, not just theory. Because of that, the lessons stayed with us much longer, and learned concepts became easier to apply in practice.
Okay. Yeah, that's amazing to hear your experience. I remember once I had the evaluation of the participant who was like, something to develop. We always have what we can improve. And he said, I hated that I could not be bored for a second. I was like, usually we try to people to be, but he was there to chill and to be sitting in a bag and just but he didn't have a chance. So thank you, Vanessa. I asked now Martin, like, from your experience, when you deliver game-based and story-based training versus traditional one, what is the difference for you from the perspective of a trainer?
Change of attitude and mindset. So if attitude and mindset might be a problem, or the topic needs to develop attitude and mindset, then the story-based supported by game training is much more impactful. Plus top management. So top management, difficult to develop on basic competencies, difficult to challenge. To invite them on a journey is much more safe in terms of the learning objectives.
Thank you. Zuzi, what about for you? You have experienced some training after game-based training, so...
Yeah, I think I will build on what Martin is saying, also talking from the perspective of somebody who is making the decision on behalf of the company and buying the trainings. It's much more easier to engage the audience and the stakeholders behind this kind of trainings. And also, it's much more easier to justify the return on investment, because when you are in this emotional, or in the gamification, you really learn through experience and consequences. So you really go through a model, you need to understand the theory, you immediately practice, and you immediately see what is the consequence of your decision. So basically, we have participants leaving the trainings feeling, oh, well, I really understand what I made wrong, because there is also a constant kind of a feedback loop when people are looking back, okay, what could I have done better? What could I have done differently? And also, I would say there is probably one more element that I think is super important in this gamification. There is a misperception that you've got senior leaders and they know it all. When you put senior leaders into a traditional training, what often happens, they don't feel safe enough to fail, because suddenly you put them into a role play and you tell them, okay, now you delegate, now you give feedback, and the expectation is that they know it all, but it's not always the case, and they feel uncomfortable to fail in front of their peers. When you put them into gamification, they are playing a character in the story, and it's much more safe here. Actually, you take them out of their real context, you put them in a new context, you teach them transferable skills which they can apply in the future, but in a very psychological safe environment, and that's why it's much more easier to pull them into it.
Plus, they like to also observe each other in this setting, which is good because it's also social learning. So this is something that we can also extend. This was, I would like to add, because this was also the discussion that we had among Martin and Jana, how to do the gamified part if we let people fail. Because, in all games, there is a chance that you will fail. So this is something that we, debate all the time. But at the end, we want to have a happy ending. So we let them fail through day, but then at the end, we try to navigate them. So they either manage to come back from South Pole, or they manage to be successful or on Mars. But I mean, if they would be really, really inefficient, there is a chance that they can fail. But yeah, we try to manage this risk. All right. I look at the time, so I have maybe one, maybe two questions. Depends how fast you answer. So we are moving on. So we were on the training, we experienced the training, but what about afterwards? Because this is something that we always struggle, that as trainers, we have very little impact on what's happening after the training. But with the retention of the information after game-based and story-based training, plus the post work that I think we managed to do online, offline, different ways. But still, I would like to know, what is something that you took personally from the training, or maybe Martin, some of your participants that you got feedback, something that they use and it helped them to overcome some challenge. Vanessa, do you have your example, or maybe some colleague that you participated with?
From my opinion, is a key lesson from game-based learning that people learn best when they can try out decision in a safe settings and immediately see what happens. This helps them understand their choices better and improve how they act next time. Maybe this is one
okay, so have reflection how they decided, and then when they make decision in real life, it helps them to connect with this experience. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I have one example that it was we were delivering for energetic company, and there was a sales director. He was absolutely negative the whole training, and his team was the second one to reach the South Pole, so he was angry because he basically lost. And then 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, he sent us a picture of a cake that he baked for his employees to sell the vision of upcoming year. Just to give you the context, Amundsen, when he was right before going to South Pole, he baked the cake in shape of South Pole and help his people to understand what's the goal, what's the journey, and so on. And this participant, who was completely negative the whole time, he was the only one who sent us real life application that he was selling his sales vision through a cake. So absolutely amazing feedback that we got. Of course, it's not, we don't get this every day. So that's why it was very nice moment that they share with us. So maybe, Martin, do you have any other examples that some of your participants applied specific skill or setting that help us challenge something in their real life?
Currently, we are working with a company who went through major global crisis. So the production was stopped for several weeks globally, impacted over 10,000 people. And in Atlantis, we are the topic is sense making and system thinking, and how to bring that into the company strategy. And I think sense making is mostly understand like how do you behave if things makes no sense. So how you behave if things makes no sense, and you can either ignore it, or you can test and see what happens. But if it doesn't work, ignoring and testing and sees what happens, then you have to use sense making and system thinking. And let's say all company is in front of major risk. So what if we don't catch the trends? What if we set the wrong strategy? And the way how Atlantis is able to shape the confidence of the top management and is able to admit that their opinion might not be the only correct one, and how they are willing to build on the collective wisdom and improve the sources for the better decision making is amazing. And that what I'm experiencing in that company, and it's a big impact. That's brilliant.
Thank you very much, Martin. I have one last question, Zuzka. Why do you think that the story and game-based training are powerful for adult learning?
Yeah, I think for me, I probably would say it really accelerates learning because it goes through hands, heart, and hands. It really you really learn some new concepts. You really experience it in the very adventurous, experimental way. It creates emotions, and that's why people really remember it. And then you basically practice, and as I said, you see the consequences immediately of your decisions. So I think it's in a very safe environment. So that would be probably the kind of 2 or 3 elements why I feel this really works. And I think I'm a nice example that I still remember after more than 15 years how what the impact is or can be.
Thank you. Vanessa, what about you?
I think adults often learn by comparing new ideas to past experiences and habits. Stories and games help us step outside of these filters.
Very nice thought. Thank you. Thank you,